So Nacho and Dog. What were Nacho and Dog? They were two mascots for Taco Bell who were kicking off in the mid-90s, around 1995-96, the Taco Bell Kids menu. They were designed in kind of a Rocco's Modern Life, sort of classically Shupo, not made by either of those people, style. There were kind of two characters, Nacho, who is voiced by Eddie Deason. I should have asked Ryan Walterson this. Robert Paulson is the dog, Eddie Deason is Nacho, and Joe Sarla is the announcer. All great. I didn't know, I couldn't find that information, so thank you. There isn't a lot about these guys online. They advertised everything from things like selling toys like Goosebumps toys. They sold the Star Wars Special Edition toys, which I still have a lot of that line. It's actually a cool Taco Bell giveaway thing. Earthworm Jim, The Masked Rider, and Batman, the animated series. That ad probably has the best animation of all of them. They even did a movie ad one, which is a perfect, maybe my favorite because I like movies. They have one where they dive into guacamole. They have all sorts. It's just basically this cat and this cat and dog who, like hanging out and eating Taco Bell. And at one point he has to get his nose fixed, and the other one removes, I think, the other one's nose and then uses it as a bowling ball. Just kind of weird cartoon stuff. And eventually they would get rid of him in 1997, and then the Taco Bell Chihuahua would take over. But I would say he didn't really take over because the Taco Bell Chihuahua, let me say this, was a mascot for the entire brand, for the entire restaurant. Nacho and Dog sort of ended around that time, but to me they were just for the kids menu. They were just on kids animation programming. They were not for the entire restaurant. So the idea that they were stopped because of the Taco Bell Chihuahua is a bit of a misnomer because they're sort of different mascots, whatever. But yeah, so Nacho and Dog, it ended in 1997. You got certain things in the Taco Bell Kids meal, which they helped launch, actually. The Taco Bell Kids menu, which did not last past 2013, had a hard or soft shell taco, chips, cinnamon twist, a drink, and a toy. Eventually got rid of the chips when the Super Size Me thing was happening, but eventually they stopped doing a kids menu in 2013. But this is not really why I'm talking about this. So the guy who helped create them, or at least design them, and I'm not sure exactly what his role was this guy, James Primus. He was a dad actually in my neighborhood growing up. And how I was friends with his son a little bit. We were kind of in the same friend group, but I didn't go to his house that much. But I hadn't been to his house. So his dad came in for kind of professionals come into your middle school day, and he came in and basically was like, "Oh, and I make Nacho and Dog, these animated logos for Taco Bell." And there was kind of a day we could hang out with them and talk. It was kind of I forget why I got to hang out with this guy, but my enthusiasm for this guy was insane. And anytime I was in any social situation with this guy's dad, I would just talk his ear off and learn as much as I could about animation. I know he went on to make Generation O, which I didn't know actually until researching this, but he was always very nice to me. And I always thought Nacho and Dog were the coolest because I knew someone in animation. This was the only person I knew at all at the time. And he was actually very nice to me, by the way. Incredibly nice guy. I remember talking his ear off that time, and he just let me ask every question I wanted. And that time the internet didn't have as much info, so he basically, I remember he told me the entire John K. Ren and Stimpy story. This was in the 90s, so no one knew what he would become, anything like that, but he just laid out that whole thing. He told me what designs he liked. I remember we both didn't like the designs of Dario when it first started, and were confused why Mike Judge wasn't involved. He was like, I always thought that was weird, why isn't he involved? And they didn't, again, no one explained these things, so you just kind of had to guess with people. And I remember another time I met him on a family trip, we just sort of ran into him, and his son wasn't there. His son was with someone else, wasn't there, so I just he let me talk to him for way too long. I don't know if he was God, this kid is obnoxious, or not. I want to thank him, if he ever sees this, for being as cool as he was about it. So basically, Generation O was a big point in his career, at least, because he also did children's books. He's done things like Kettle and Potty, Destroy Happy World, and 12 Things to Do Before You Crash and Burn, all sorts of stuff like that. But when he worked on Generation O, one of the people he worked on was Suzanne Collins, who would then go on to write the Hunger Games books. He apparently, according to her Wikipedia and other things, he encouraged her to write children's books and to get into books and get into writing, which she then did. And then eventually, 12 years later or something, wrote the Hunger Games. I don't think he's responsible for Hunger Games, but he at least encouraged her to do so. And they wrote a children's book, or made a children's book that he illustrated after her success with Hunger Games. So congrats to him on that. That's pretty cool. I don't know what happened to him. I couldn't find a Twitter, and I don't think he remembers me at all. But I always thought these were really cool little things. I'm always disappointed there is so little online about this, so that's kind of why I wanted to make it. And I know this video was about me talking to an animator in the mid-90s. I don't know if that's interesting or not. But, and in fact, I was like obsessed with finding this guy. I would ask like Ian and anyone in animation, like, do you ever know James Primus? And they'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, no one knew what I was talking about forever. So that's also, I don't know, I kind of just wanted to do this because it sort of meant a lot to me. It was like someone who would hear me exhaustively talking about the cartoons I wanted to talk about, but it was also like a fun thing. It looked really cool. It made me want to go to Taco Bell. I thought it was a cool way to introduce it. It was very 90s that it felt in this style. I think it was an interesting way to take the classically Shupo Rocco's modern lifestyle in a different way. You can tell he's into children's book. His art style looks sort of very 90s within that kind of thing, but I think he differentiates it, because you look at like how when they're in the movie theater, everyone else is like colored differently, so those guys pop, so you almost like don't notice that there's a full audience of people in that movie theater. It was he does interesting design choices within that. They eventually, Nacho and Dog would get their own toys, one of them sitting on a couch that would kind of ride along, one of them in a taco kind of couch thing. You could get individual ones where one would have a sticker thing and the other one have like stick out its tongue and stuff. I'm almost curious to go onto eBay and buy some of them, just because I have pleasant memories of Nacho and Dog. They were really kind of cool, weird 90s pitchmen, basically. It's just kind of this weird thing. I don't think it's as well remembered as maybe it should, and maybe I just remember it because this guy was at my middle school talking about animation and drawing, and I was just like so hungry to talk about anyone who did anything creative, that he was willing to hear me talk way too long about it. A big thank you to him. I think they are cool characters. I wish they lived on more. I think it's like anyone who's into 90s nostalgia, check these out. I will have the playlist linked below, and this is a separate video, of course. But check out the playlist I tweeted out today. They're cool little cartoons. It's a weird dive into this weird time in the 90s where people wanted to be like the Nickelodeon stuff, but they wanted mainstream stuff, wanted to be stranger and things like that. And I think this has a strange kind of weird homemade vibe that I think James Primus stuff works really well with. I never watched Generation O. I can't really compare it to that. These are just my memories of that, my memories with him, and thinking Nacho and Dog were kind of the coolest, weirdest thing, and just like having an inch of kind of seeing someone who had something on TV was always the coolest. Maybe my own nostalgic memories are too wrapped up in this, but I always look back on them fondly, and it was cool rewatching those cartoons. And I'd always get excited when those ads came on, because I was like, oh cool, I know a Nacho and Dog thing. So I don't know if I cared as much before I met him. I don't remember that, but I definitely cared after. And it was really nice to have a grown-up to talk about this weird stuff with and go on as much as he did. So he was always a cool guy. And I think Nacho and Dog are pretty cool. So check them out as well. And they're just kind of like a weird kind of time capsule from the 90s that unfortunately I think too many people have forgotten about. But I think they're actually kind of worth a little more discussion than they've gotten.